What other myths have you got for us then?
Let's do number 2. I guess number 2 would be sugar is the enemy.
That is probably the most talked about thing in the history of food over the last 20, 30 years, is that sugar is devil.
Yeah, I think it's still getting thrown around, right? Like, we go through all different cycles of diet, high, like low fat used to be the thing, and then obviously carbs and so on. But like sugar has consistently stayed there, being like sugar and insulin is the enemy. And I think it's all about, as with everything in nutrition, it's all about context of where that's happening in your day, what your week is looking like, what your training program looks like. And there is a space and a time for near enough every food in your week. And it's just about being sensible, about managing when you have it and where you have it.
I feel like I see in the news a lot stuff about insulin resistance and the idea that our diets are so heavy in sugar and it's causing insulin resistance.
Yeah.
Are you going to get insulin resistance if you're doing lots of riding and eating lots of sugar?
Yeah. Can you still get... Yes, you can still do exercise and still get insulin resistance, but exercise improves your insulin sensitivity overall in general.
Can I ask a pre-question to this? What is insulin resistance and why is it a bad thing?
Well, it'll be a case of that as you're bringing in sugar and then blood sugar rises, if you're then not able to release insulin, which is insulin resistance, that you don't release as much or what you need to be able to remove sugar from the blood, that sugar then stays in the blood for prolonged periods of time.
Right.
And with elevated blood sugar levels for prolonged periods of time, you start to then get other health issues that come with it.
So is the idea that if you eat lots of sugar, your insulin gets lazy and you end up with too much sugar in your blood and there's repercussions of that?
Yeah, I guess so.
And potentially a precursor for diabetes and that kind of thing?
Yeah, exactly. And that's why, depending on the type of diabetes you have, you also need to take insulin because you need to give yourself that insulin to then put into the stream to enable you to remove that blood sugar from there.
Okay, so back to the question.
So with exercise, you're saying your insulin sensitivity increases, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, which is a good thing. But then there's periods of time to have sugar. You obviously need sugar or a form of glucose during exercise to maintain exercise, because we know that during exercise we are using the sugar that's in the blood, and if you run out of that, you bonk, and that's where you have low blood sugar level. Mm-hmm. So we know that if you maintain blood glucose levels, that you're able to maintain exercise performance, which means that you are able to take on glucose in its many forms, which could be glucose, it could be maltodextrin, which is a chain of glucose molecules. It could be sugar, which is glucose mixed with fructose. So there's a number of ways to take it on. And there's a whole bunch of research, loads and loads and loads, that show that you can have honey, you can have just sugar, you can have, a gel or, a Lucozade. They all do the same thing and help with performance.
So honey is not necessarily a better or worse type of sugar than table sugar or a Jelly Baby?
No, it's a different format of it.
Yes.
It has different connotations of where it comes from. How you feel about it, I guess.
But in terms of your body, sugar is sugar.
Yeah. I don't know if in specific if there are additional properties to honey that may be beneficial to you, so I couldn't answer that. But if we're looking at it from just molecules of sugar, that it will do the same thing.
Yep.
There's also a phase then after exercise called the insulin independent phase, which is where the body, through the process of exercise, becomes significantly more accepting of of sugar, and it transports it through more efficiently and effectively without the specific aid of insulin. And it's called an insulin independent phase. It's where certain trains or transporters move to the muscle membrane wall because of exercise, and they draw it all on more easily. And that's a great time where you can have certain items that you may enjoy, the less micronutrient dense options, that you could have after a ride if that's what you want.
So as a normal person out on a ride, sugar is not an enemy. What should you be looking to take on? What quantities and when?
Yeah, I think as part of the whole picture was that we didn't mention is like whether you exercise or not, taking on sweets and Coke and whatever like this just casually through the day is going to bring blood sugar level up. And if you repeatedly do that over a prolonged periods of time, you can open yourself up to potential added risk of insulin resistance. But if you exercise more, you reduce that risk. If you take it on specifically around exercise, it's then just being used to fulfill exercise.
Yeah.
And in terms of amounts and quantities, that I would say anything less than 90 minutes, you don't need to take anything on. If it's kind of 90 minutes to 2.5 hours, you could probably range between 40 to 60 grams of carbohydrate an hour. And then anything longer than 2.5, 3 hours, I'd probably start moving to 60 to 90 grams an hour.